Welcome back to Book Club Preview. I'm Michael, and today we're looking at the Spiderwick Chronicles, Chapter 6, Lucinda's Secret. In this chapter, the Grace children get surrounded by a bunch of trees. Then, out of these trees, come some elves. And it's kind of hard to see them because their clothes look like leaves and branches, and their beard or their hair has twigs and different things in it. But out of the trees step 3 elves, one girl and I think 2 guys, and they start to talk to the Grace children, and they say, "Oh, how did you find this glade? How did you find this path? We haven't had anyone visit for a long time. You must have the field guide." They said, we'll make a bargain. You give us the field guide, and we'll give you back your freedom. Man, I don't know if that sounds like a good bargain to you or not, but they don't even have the field guide. And so they say, well, what happened? Why do you need the field guide? And the elves say, humans aren't very trustworthy. They're very bad, they're very mean and brutal. But at least now they're ignorant, and we don't want anyone to know. We don't want anyone to know about us because humans might hunt us and kill us. And then he said, "Let me show you." And they open up the forest a little bit, and this unicorn comes over, and Mallory's just like drawn to the unicorn, and she walks over to it, and the unicorn touches its horn on Mallory's head, and she falls down, and she starts to dream. Simon and Jared touch Mallory to pull her away, and they get sucked into the dream too. And they can see all these terrible events that happened to unicorns, or to the fairy people. Hunters hunting the unicorns, cutting off their horns, taking their skin, turning their bones into powder, and all this stuff, just really, really sad and tragic. And the dream stops, and Mallory's just crying because it was so sad, everything they saw. And then the elves say, you need to give us back the field guide, because this is what humans do and what they're like. And then Jared says, well, if this is what we're like, why did you send goblins after us? And the elves are like, well, we didn't send goblins after you. We don't use goblins as our soldiers or minions. And they say, it must have been Mulgarath. There we go. And they say, well, who's that? They say, well, he's an ogre controlling or gathering the goblins and making deals with dwarves. And so they don't know who that is, but it sounds like he wants the field guide too. And Jared says, oh, it's not us you don't want to have the field guide. You don't want him to get it because you're afraid he'll do something with it. And then Jared asks, what happened to Arthur Spiderwick? Well, the fairies say that Arthur Spiderwick tried to trick him, and because he didn't keep his promise, they trapped him. They did something to him so that way he couldn't be free anymore. They didn't know what, but that's kind of what they say. And then they shoot out some vines and ropes, and they go around Jared's legs. And they say, and you will do the same, or you will be stuck here forever also. And Jared gets trapped, and they look at Simon and Mallory and say, bring us the field guide, or your brother will stay here forever. Now, at this point, Jared starts to do something weird. And he looks over at Simon and he says, Jared, help me. Please, Jared, help me. And Simon's like, what? Mallory's kind of like, what's Jared talking about? But then they get it. Jared is trying to do some kind of trick. We don't know what yet. But then Simon and Mallory start calling Jared Simon. Say, no, Simon, we'll save you. And Simon starts calling Jared Simon. And then he starts saying like, oh, you have to make the deal with them. Make them promise. And then they start getting this trick going where Simon, it sounds like, is going to make a promise for Jared. Simon is going to say, I, Jared, promise. But Simon isn't Jared. So maybe his promise won't be binding. That'll be the next chapter. We don't know what's happening, but suddenly they start to talk about this idea, and the Fae people say that they'll make some kind of deal or bargain. Well, vocabulary. The first one is gnarled. Gnarled is like bumpy, or the shape is not correct. If you think about maybe like a grandma or grandpa, their hands are a little bit gnarled. They're kind of old, and the shape isn't that clear, and it's a little rough. And that's just age or using their hands a lot, especially if your grandpa was a mechanic or a farmer. Their hands are just tough because of use. Hospitality is like care or providing for someone while they're with you. Like if someone comes to your house and you have good hospitality, you will take care of them, giving them drinks or food, making sure they're comfortable. Sniffed, or this kind of action with your nose. It could be smelling something, but it could also be like blowing nose out, like what? And I think Jared said something that the elf kind of took. Goblins kind of went like that. Judge and jury. This is an expression we use when someone is going to say whether or not you did a bad thing, and they're going to choose the punishment if you did the bad thing. Usually, if you do something wrong, like you have a crime, and you go to court, and there's two groups. Well, there's three, really. There's a judge, and the judge kind of manages everything going on. Then there's a jury, and these are people that hear your story, and the jury decides whether or not you're innocent, you didn't do it, or you're guilty, you did it. And then the third person is like your lawyer, or the lawyers going on, sharing your story. Okay, the judge doesn't pick if you are guilty, or if you did a bad thing, or if you did a good thing. That's the jury's job. But the judge does the punishment. But here with the elves, they're judge and jury. They're deciding if Mallory and Simon and Jared are bad, and they're deciding if they deserve a punishment for being bad. Ivory is a material and it's a color, but it just means white. Of course, the unicorn's color is ivory, is white. Hacks, that's kind of this kind of way to cut or chop something. It's not like a gentle, skilled motion. It's like using your strength and your power to use force to cut something. And a hunter was hacking off the unicorn's horn while it was still alive. Disjointed means unconnected, unrelated. The pictures in the dream kept going faster and faster, and they couldn't put them in order. They became disjointed. And lastly, I believe the stomach was heaving. That's kind of coming up. This motion like After the dream, Jared felt like he wanted to throw up because it was so sad and the pictures were moving so fast. The last one here, sorry. Sentries. And the elves call the goblins the sentries. A sentry is kind of like someone who watches. If there's a castle and there's a gate, usually there are two sentries by the gate. People watching to see what's going on, or watchmen. Sentries can also be a small group of soldiers going out to see something, to find something. And so they call the goblins these scouts, or these soldiers finding information. Discussion question I have for you is, would you make the deal with the elves? What kind of deal would you make with the elves? Do you trust the elves? I don't know. I would be pretty torn. But it seems like Jared has a really good trick up his sleeve. Of course, please write down your own discussion question. That's all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Book Club Preview. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Hey, if you have any questions about the video today, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. If you had any other vocabulary words that you wanted to know what they meant, let me know. And also, if you're interested in maybe joining one of these book clubs, please leave a comment and I'll get back to you. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.